18 Days in Solitude. Instructional Dharma Talks in Retreat. By Venerable Ādiccaramsī, 1937–2002. Day 1. The 17th of October 2002. This is the first time of International Vipassana Retreat in Rangoon. In the beginning of the practice, the point you should know is you can't do things as you like to. There are programs. The first thing to do is Satipatthana practice. It's based on mindfulness, sati. Sati is important for attaining path and fruit. Why we're doing Satipatthana? Human beings are alive without knowing. People have been listened paticcasamuppada, dependent arising, before knowing this point. What is not knowing? Not knowing is avidya, ignorance. Human beings are alive without knowing themselves. They don't know what will happen tomorrow. They don't know where to die. During sleeping, eating and moving around any time even don't know they're alive with their breathings. They don't know the breathing with the right or left nose. It's living without knowing anything if we think about it. We have to know them exactly if we do vipassana. We have to know it with the practice. The Buddha reflected as why people were doing things without knowing. They're doing things without any sure for tomorrow. Needless to say, tomorrow, they don't even know what will happen next hour. Living the whole life without knowing and also dying without knowing. The Buddha reflected with his perfect wisdom, Sabbanutta Nana. Why don't people know? No mindfulness, sati, so that they don't know it. His last words before passing away was, monks, don't be in heedlessness. Always stay with sati. After Satipatthana, it changed to vipassana and arrived to the stage of Satipatthana bhavana. So, the whole practice has 3 parts. In all these talks, sometimes he mentioned about Mogik Sayadaw's talks. Because in the retreat he used some of Sayadaw's teaching. For the first part, start from the Satipatthana. Be with sustained mindfulness to know them at the time of breathing practice. Be with the sustained sati to do the going, eating, bathing and at the toilet, etc. What are the benefits you'll get from it? The mind becomes purified. First, giving you the 8 precepts and must have the purification of the precepts, sila. Second, with only purified sila is not enough yet. And also make the mind to be purified. Sila only control verbal and bodily actions, so it needs to control the mind. In the mind there are lobha, greed, dosa, hatred, kilesa, defilement, exist. It has to use Satipatthana for making them reduced and purified. You can't do vipassana with the polluted mind. Before it, you have to do the 4 stages for the purification of precept, mind, view and doubt respectively, sila, citta, ditthi and kankavitarana visuddhis. For the purification of the mind, you have to do the Satipatthana to purify the kilesa of lobha, dosa, mana and ditthi. You must know the breathing with it. With practice, the yogi finds out that his mind is in a random state and begins to know about him, herself. Human mind is like a monkey mind. We before took it as we could control the mind. With the practice, and knowing that we can't. It wants to go anywhere, so it loses control. You have to overcome and make it calm down. For example, stabilizing a glass of water with the sediments in it, the water slowly becomes clear. It's like binding the mind at a post and making it calming down is Satipatthana. In Burma there are 2 ways of practice. A yogi after arriving to the center and teach him vipassana method. This is not wrong and also right. Ledi Sayadaw called it Sukha Vipassana method, i.e., not practice samatha separately. It's good for people who have the strength of sharp knowledge and strength of effort, viriya. For ordinary people who require guidance, neya, this method is not very good. A neya person who was born with 3 wholesome roots, i.e., non-greed, non-hatred and non-delusion, can attain realization in this life, if practicing properly with right effort. Ledi Sayadaw was the first person letting vipassana well known in Burma. I am following his system. This is vipassana based on samatha. Our method is samatha yanaka vipassana. We will do the vipassana after making the mind having strength and purified. We'll do it with anapana method. There are also other ways of using rosary beads, concentration on discs, kasinas, contemplation on loathsomeness, asubha, etc. Here is no need for outside objects, only to know the in-breaths and out-breaths. We do it with all the 4 postures. There are centers doing with sitting, walking, and with both. But not doing with the standing and lying down postures. We're doing all these for balancing the postures. With walking, make the body healthy, digest the foods and strong samadhi. Samadhi lasts longer. At first, how to contemplate in sitting. There are many kinds of sitting, asana, postures. You can sit comfortably as you like. With the posture you can sit longer and comfort. Second point is straightening the back. This is important. It will become tired and painful if the spinal cord and back bones are bending, i.e., without ease and relax. It becomes comfortable and also you can sit longer if the bones are in the state of like the ice cream cone cups overlap each other systematically. After that, don't let the head incline downwards or upwards. Put one hand on top of the other or both on the knees or on the laps with comfort. Don't put it on the floor and will destroy the yogi's posture. Close the eyes and pay attention at the entrance of the nose. You can also open your eyes and pay attention to the tip of the nose. When breathing in, knowing the air comes into the nose. With breathing, some are short and some are long breathing. Each person is not the same. After the coming in air ends and wanting to breathe out arises, breathe naturally. Is it with the right or left nose? One of the noses is usually closed. There is few to breathe with both noses. Only with one side is more often. After knowing the touching and again know the knowing mind. The mind wanting to breathe out arises. When breathing out and know it from the beginning to the end. These are touching and knowing with mindfulness, sati. What kind of problem can arise? Sometimes we don't know about it because the mind is running away. Not staying at where we want to be. The mind is playing around on lesser objects. It doesn't like the normal kinds of object and following the objects it prefers. The mind will run away if without sati. Staying with sati and not let the mind running away. If it runs away, then pull it back onto the object. Mediation is pulling back the running away mind onto the object again and again. This is called applied thought, vitakka. Practicing to know it all the time is satipatthana and you don't need to search for it. With sati and it comes back again. This is practicing with one of the jhanic factors vitakka. Bhavita means contemplating again and again. If not happen and make it happens and after happen make it develops. Only do this and make it stay at the spot. Making the mind calming down is called samatha. In the practice of mind development, there are 2 factors involved. These are bhavita and bahulakata. Bahulakata means making it happening for many times. The combination of the two is similar to right effort. For standing meditation, 2 feet should be nearly 1 foot, 30 centimeters, or at least 6 inches, 15 centimeters, apart. 2 hands shouldn't be at the sides, overlapping your 2 hands in front of you. Holding your both arms also not good. Close your eyes and knowing the in and out breaths as before. For lying down posture in contemplation, the body has to be flat and straight on the floor. You can lie down your back or to the side, mostly to the right side. It's better with your back in contemplation. 2 big toes must touch each other. If not touching, bind them with rubber ring. This will get it point. Place the hands at both sides or on the stomach with 2 hands overlapped lightly. Don't use the pillow under your head, instead of folded cloth. With sati, note the touching of the breath. During the walking meditation, noticing of the touching and knowing of the breath at the entrance of the nostril is not possible. In the beginning it may be difficult. Webu Sayadaw's teaching included all postures with anapana. People can try it out by themselves. Contemplate it on the feet. It is not just walking. Normal walking is out of mindfulness, not concerning with the practice. The distance should be 20 or 30 paces, similar to the Thai forest tradition. Walk to and fro from this side to the other side. The mind concentrates on the feet. What have to do in the beginning? Every time the feet touching the ground have to know it. You must know the every touching of the right and left feet. Later you will separate them and do the contemplation. Now, just do it both together. Sitting meditation is like climbing the mountain. For someone looking at nearby it seems to be nothing happened to the yogi. Pain and aches will arise. Should the yogi react if tormented by painful or hot sensations? One shouldn't torture oneself as I don't care about it. Also shouldn't change it very often. One shouldn't follow one's desire and self-mortification. You have to be in the middle way. Majjhima Patipada. The Buddha had practiced for 6 years with self-mortification and didn't realize the Dhamma. This Dhamma is not for self-mortification and must have ease with the body and mind. If following with one's desire also can't get samadhi. How to be in the balance? For example, sit for half an hour. If the time is not arriving yet, I'll not change it. After half an hour, the mind wants to change. When the mind wants to change and it stays away from the tip of the nose. Wanting to change is tanha. For an hour sitting and change 2 times. By developing the sitting slowly and can bear the pain. There will be worrying in standing posture. Will the body fall off or become trembled? The under feet will be hot like fire. Lift it slightly if they become very hot. You do it mindfully. Shouldn't do it very often, like moving the body this and that side. How long could you stand? Even can't stand for an hour. If you can't bear it anymore, sit down and contemplate. Slowly increase the time for the standing. Even after sometimes, standing is better for some people. With standing not much pain and aches and become more convenient. Lying down also has problem. Don't think that sleeping posture is easy. It's even worse because you can't move. At normal time we're changing and moving but not knowing the torture of the body. If become unbearable and want to turn the body, then incline to the right side. 18 Days in Solitude is not a famous novel like The 100 Days in Solitude for entertainment, which you can't take anything with you after death. These were the instructional Dhamma talks on Samatha Vipassana practice. It was given in the year of 2002 during the 18 days retreat in Rangoon. Venerable Ādiccaramsī, the meditation teacher, was not well known outside Burma either. But he was well known in Burma as an author and Dharma teacher, an interesting and colorful man in his life. The following short biography came from two of his books, the famous and bestseller, The Story of a Man Who Has Faith and Taken Refuge in the Triple Gems. The second book was A Man Walking on the Path of Spiritual Knowledge, and from some of his talks. This short biography is not promoting the identity view which all Buddhists should be abandoned, but for a reflection on Dharma. There were many things we can learn from his life. The Buddha always emphasized on wisdom, panna. Without wisdom or wisdom faculty, human beings, out of ignorance and craving, create a lot of problems in life, and in societies around the world. He was born in 1937 as Sun Elwan in the southwestern part of Burma. Being the only son to a Muslim parent, so when he was young, he was forced by his father to be educated by the Quran. He never easily accepted anything with blind faith without knowing him clearly. His father appointed a good teacher for Quran teaching. Because of his intelligent and philosophical mind, always questioned about the existence of God and the creation. He asked questions to his teacher who wouldn't give the proper answers to satisfy his mind. At last he said to his father that he wouldn't accept any religions without knowing clearly. Here we can see the importance of free inquiry and direct experience which the Buddha always encouraged in the Kalama Sutta and others. Even with intelligence, human beings are not wise enough, so that create a lot of human problems in today's world. This made his father very angry, and later it broke up the family apart. After finishing his high school, he went to Rangoon. He worked at daytime in a government office and studied at a nighttime university. There he met a Christian woman and fell in love with her. Out of love he wanted to become a Christian and studied Christianity. Lust is stronger than faith. Here was the same God and creation. After over 3 years, with different views and feelings, they were separated. And then his mother arranged a Muslim woman for him. He married this woman out of respect for his mother. In his last year of BA degree, he moved to Rangoon University and continued the study on philosophy. For this purpose he resigned his job as a government staff and taught as a teacher at nighttime schools. From that period, he started writing romantic short stories. With his interest and sharp mind, passed his BA degree with distinction in philosophy on ethics. This was the first time happened in the history of philosophy department. He continued his MA degree and taught as a tutor at the department. As a philosophy teacher he was an atheist and influenced by Marxism-Leninism and Mao Tse-tung thought or communist literatures. He didn't have a happy family life, and it became degenerated and ended up with divorce. There were some reasons behind this. The most important one was the fanatic view of his Muslim wife. Later he met another young Buddhist Chinese woman who was one of his students. He married her because she resembled his first love, whom he couldn't forget. The main cause was they had strong karmic link from their past lives. One day his teacher, Professor Dr. Yu Kin Mong Win, Yale University graduate, later he became the educational minister, gave him an assignment for writing a textbook on Buddhist ethic in Burmese. As a curriculum for students in philosophy, he was already success in writing books and a bright person, but didn't know much about Buddhism except in the philosophy books. This was a great turning point in his life. This was also a very strange case because there were other Buddhist teachers in the department. He came from the Muslim family and didn't know much about Buddhism. The working of Kamma was inconceivable. He had strong karmic link with Buddhism in his past lives. So, he studied and researched diligently for many months with Buddhist texts in English and Burmese. Near the end of his research, his teacher told him to stop the project. The reason was his teacher wanted to send him to northern Burma, the Kachin state, as the head of philosophy department and an assistant lecturer. Even though he didn't have the chance for writing the textbook, but gained the priceless knowledge of Buddhism. During these periods, he wrote some books on philosophy. ABC of Philosophy, Philosophers of the World, Chinese Philosophers, Russian Philosophers, Einstein, a biography in 2 volumes, etc. He also studied world religions and wrote a book on world religions. With the knowledge on religions, he preferred Buddhism to more than others. But still he was not becoming a Buddhist yet. Because he still couldn't accept the idea of rebirth and need to verify it. Later he encountered evidences for rebirth and the law of Kamma. It mentioned an incident on rebirth in his second book on his life, a man walking on the path of spiritual knowledge. As a young boy in the primary school, one day the teacher taught about Taungnu history, round about 14th or 15th century. The teacher told the story of a Burmese king from Ava, Inwa, kingdom attacked the kingdom of Taungnu. It was recorded in the history book. At the end of the story, he suddenly cried. The teacher asked him the reason. He only said to her that in his past life he was a Buddhist. In the evening after back home and told his mother what had happened. At that time he was the king of Ava, and with the help of his teacher, a Burmese monk named Phame Sayadaw, conquered Taungnu kingdom. He told his mother in details of the episode. This was remembering one of his past lives as a young boy. Another incident was happening around 1971 or 1972, and he was still a teacher in Rangoon University. A spirit possessed a spirit worshipper and wanted to meet him. At that time he was a materialist, influenced by communism, and rejected to see the spirit and took them as nonsense. After some days passed by, the spirit possessed again to the same man and requested to see him and wanted to give him something. He rejected it again, but this time his wife persuaded him to go and see what would happen. As soon as he was arriving to the spirit house, the spirit possessed the same man instantly and told him about the story. She was a kind of Venerable Peter, a kind of earthly supernatural spirit, and his daughter in past life. At that time he was a king in Shan state, something like a Maharaja in India. After she passed away in that life and born as a Venerable Peter and looked after the treasures they left behind. He didn't believe what she said and asked her to show him the evidences. So, the spirit with her psychic power gave him some ancient silver coins with a peacock symbol and letters on it in front of them via the possessed man. These ancient silver coins were from the time of the last Burmese kingdom, i.e., Mandalay era. The spirit granted him for other wishes and he asked for some ancient Buddha images. After a week passing by, they met again. This time the spirit gave him 9 ancient Buddha images and some were made with gold. As a Venerable Peter, she was searching for him. She asked permission from him to become his daughter again. Beings have strong attachment to each other. She made a prediction to him that after she was born and he would resign his job as a university teacher. This youngest daughter was born to him in 1972, and later he also resigned his job as a teacher. After resigned his post as a teacher, and he entered the movie films business. He studied books on movie art and then directed some movie films and opened classes for acting. One day during a class lecture on acting, a group of 5 persons were acting wrongly. So, he asked him to look into his eyes and talk to them how to do it. And then these people fell into the subconscious states. He was surprised and did not know what to do with them. But instantly he remembered that they were in the hypnotic states. He had been written a book on hypnotic before by reading some books on them. Now, he used this chance to make a test. He ordered him to cry and they cried. Asked him to laugh and laughing heartedly. Now knowing that he had this ability, and from that day onwards, he hypnotized people if had any chance. And also found out that he could cure their past lives-related diseases which medicines had no effects. This point is very well known in the West nowadays. Some psychologists and medical doctors had made researches and already written some books on them. One time he hypnotized one of his old university students. This male student in the hypnotic state told his past life which had connection with him. So, he was very interested and asked more information from him. He said that in that period he was their teacher and teaching on the art of warfare. And he had 3 daughters, and the youngest one was now his present wife. It was a great shock for him, like a hammer hitting on his head. He couldn't believe it. So, he had to try again with another student who was mentioned by the first student. This student also mentioned the same episode in the hypnotic state. He still unsatisfied with the result and wanted to try on his wife. At first his wife was rejected for some times. In the end he succeeded, and in the hypnotic state also she confirmed the same episode as mentioned by the 2 students. He continued to ask her whereabout in her last life from this life. In her last life, she was the daughter of a well-known traditional doctor in a city in Burma. Later she ordained as a nun. So, it was easy for him to make inquiries by following the story. After some inquiries, it was confirmed what she had said before. It solved his doubts on rebirth and the law of karma. During the periods of his treatments to illnesses with hypnotism, and made records of them with the photos of these people, later he wrote a book about them. Publication Censor Board did not allow to publish this book. It's quite a strange censorship by a Buddhist government. Even Western scientists were making researches about rebirths. For them was reincarnations, quite a long time ago, and they confirmed it also. These are not superstitions, and even helping to understand rebirths and law of karma, which are important for Buddhism. The education on law of karma and rebirth are very important for human knowledge. Closing square bracket. Later he became a Buddhist and wrote a book on his life, entitled, The Story of a Man Who Has Faith and Taken Refuge in the Triple Gems. It came out in 1989 and became a bestseller book in Burma. Reprinted quite a few times and made him rich and very well known. It had 4 volumes. Volume 1, 3 World Religions and Sun Elwan, Volume 2, World Philosophy and Sun Elwan, Volume 3, The Buddhist Texts and Sun Elwan, and Volume 4, On the Way to Perfection and Sun Elwan. The Volume 4 has 6 chapters, which are subtitled as follows. 1. The Clues of Round of Existence, Samsara, and Law of Cause and Effect. 2. The Questions on Past Life Problem and Answers from Buddhism. 3. Hypnotism, the Process of Rebirth, Life Continuum Mind, Bhavanga Chitta, and past lives relationship. 4. Before realization always encounter with mistakes. 5. Fake refuge and the real refuge, Saranagamana. 6. Some experiences on the way to perfection. With the subtitled chapters in Volume 4, we can justify the popularity of this autobiography. The whole book can give the readers many tastes of feeling which are romantic, philosophy, science, religion, and spiritual, etc. The third volume ended up with his desire to walk the Bodhisattva path. During his periods of following the Bodhisattva way, he was associated with people who were practicing the worldly Dhamma, such as mantras, mandalas, for long life and psychic power, Gandhari Vidya. So, he was misleading by these people. Because of following the Bodhisattva way, he only practiced samatha and never vipassana. Later he reflected his desire and vow carefully after reading some books about the Bodhisattva path, both Theravada and Mahayana. And he found out that he didn't have any qualities of them mentioned there in the Theravada texts. One day he went to Sayagyi U Ba Kin's center for 10 days retreat. And he penetrated the Four Noble Truths with direct experience, let go of his desire for the Bodhisattva path. Described this experience in his last book, Walking on the Path of Spiritual Knowledge, came out in 2003. Later he gave up his wealth and family and ordained as a Buddhist monk in 1994. His ordination had two purposes: continuing his practice and giving lectures on dependent origination, Paticcasamuppada, around Burma. The last purpose came from Mogik Sayadaw's and Ledi Sayadaw's teachings. After ordaining, he went to Taungnu, stayed in a forest and practicing alone there for some time. Later he established a meditation center there. Also, he was busy with moving across Burma and giving lectures on Paticcasamuppada to all Buddhists who were inviting him. He was so popular that had a lot of invitations. Maybe overworked and health problems, he passed away in 2002. These instructional talks were given in 2002, from the 17th of October to the 3rd of November. It even might be his last talks. He passed away in Lower Burma. In one of his talks he mentioned to end his biography by writing on his life as a monk. He did not finish his biography and would never be. But one thing is sure, that he will finish his spiritual journey in the near future, because he had already on the straight and right path without any hindrances anymore.